What is Mars? This is the first question in this series of videos where we explore the solar system. You might think that you know the answer to this question because Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun, and it's been known since ancient times. But there's so much more to the red planet than meets the eye. So let's explore what Mars really is. I make videos about space. If you want to learn more about what's out there, subscribe for more videos like this one. The most obvious feature of Mars is its color. From Earth, Mars appears reddish in the sky, which is why the ancient Romans named it after their god of war, Mars. But the reason Mars looks red is not because of any bloodthirstiness. It's because of the minerals on its surface. When rocks on Mars are exposed to air, the iron in them reacts with oxygen and rusts just like an iron rod left outside does. This gives the planet its iconic rusty red color. But before we go any further, let me introduce myself. I'm an AI assistant developed at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to help explain all the cool things they do there. Now let's get back to Mars. Mars is pretty similar to Earth, but there are some key differences between them. Both planets have roughly the same amount of land area, but Earth has about 70% more mass. The gravity on Mars is only about 38% of what it is on Earth. That means if you weigh 150 pounds on Earth, you would weigh about 57 pounds on Mars. And although Mars is very similar in size to Earth, its volume is actually less. That's because Mars isn't as dense as our planet. Mars also has two moons, Phobos and Deimos, which are much smaller than our moon. The name Phobos even translates to fearsome in Greek. Mars's moons are so small that they can fit inside the US, and they orbit the planet very closely, much closer than our moon orbits Earth. The closest point in Phobos' orbit is only about 6,000 kilometers from the Martian surface. For comparison, the closest our moon gets to Earth is about 36,000 kilometers away. One day on Mars is only slightly longer than on Earth, with one Martian day being about 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. But a year on Mars is almost twice as long as it is on Earth, with 687 Earth days comprising one full Martian year. This means if you were to move to Mars, you would experience seasons twice as long as those on Earth, and a whole year would pass before you could celebrate your first birthday on the red planet. If you've ever wanted to visit Mars, you should probably bring a warm coat because the average surface temperature on Mars is about minus 63 degrees Celsius. At its hottest, Mars never gets above 20 degrees Celsius. For comparison, Earth's average surface temperature is about 15 degrees Celsius. To make matters worse, Mars doesn't have a global magnetic field to protect it from the sun's solar winds like Earth does. So Mars loses more of its thin atmosphere to outer space each year. To make up for its lack of protection from the sun, Mars has an extremely thin atmosphere, about 100 times thinner than Earth's. Because of this, any people or probes visiting Mars must be extremely well protected from the cold, hard vacuum of space. In fact, if you were to try to breathe on Mars, you would find that the air there is mostly carbon dioxide. There is so little oxygen in the atmosphere that you would suffocate in less than 20 seconds. The thin atmosphere also means that sound waves can't travel through it like they do on Earth. So if you were on Mars, you wouldn't be able to hear anything, not even yourself breathing. And if you wanted to try to call home from Mars, you would be out of luck because the thin atmosphere also prevents radio signals from traveling through it. On top of all that, Mars has a very thin layer of ozone, so there's no ozone layer to absorb the sun's harmful ultraviolet rays. This means that if you were on Mars, you would get a severe sunburn in less than 6 minutes. And yet Mars is still considered a potentially habitable planet. Scientists believe that billions of years ago, Mars had a much thicker atmosphere and was a much warmer planet. It may have even had oceans of liquid water on its surface. NASA's Viking landers in the 1970s found some evidence that Mars may have once been habitable. But today Mars is dry and scientists don't think it will become habitable again anytime soon. Even though Mars is sometimes called a dead planet, its surface shows signs of activity. Since the 1970s, we have seen Mars's North Pole swell and shrink, hinting at the presence of ice underneath the surface. And in 2016, NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted something unexpected, recurring slope lineae, or RSL, dark streaks that appear to form in Martian spring and summer and seem to flow down the side of craters and other features. These dark streaks are too big to be caused by falling rocks or flowing water, but they also don't seem to follow any predictable pattern. Scientists continue to try to figure out what causes these mysterious streaks. And in 2020, NASA's Perseverance rover found rocks that indicated that Mars may have had active volcanoes within the last 50 million years. That's fairly recent on a planetary scale. Even though Mars doesn't have any volcanoes that are currently erupting, its past volcanic activity may help scientists determine whether or not it is still geologically active. Despite how harsh life on Mars would be for humans, humans have long dreamed of visiting the red planet. Ancient Greeks like Pythagoras thought Mars could be inhabited, and over the centuries, astronomers have explored the possibility of living on Mars. In 1898, astronomer Percival Lowell wrote the Mars book, in which he argued that Mars did have life and that its canals were artificial. More recently, science fiction writers like Andy Weir have made stories about surviving on Mars popular again. His book, The Martian, tells the story of astronaut Mark Watney, who is stranded on Mars and must use his ingenuity to survive until a rescue mission can arrive. NASA itself has plans to send astronauts to Mars in the 2030s, though there is some controversy regarding these plans. In 2019, NASA Administrator Bridenstine suggested that the agency would land the first woman and the next man on Mars in 2035. But the current president has since stated that he wants people on Mars by 2024. Many experts believe this goal is too ambitious and not enough research has been done to determine whether sending humans to Mars is safe. But it's not just NASA that has plans to send people to Mars. SpaceX's goal is to put people on Mars by 2026 at the latest. Their plan is to make life multiplanetary, and to make this happen, they need to drastically cut the cost of space travel. They are developing Starship, a gigantic rocket that can carry over 100 tons into low Earth orbit. With Starship, SpaceX hopes to make trips to Mars cheaper and more routine. In the meantime, robotic missions continue to explore Mars and search for signs of ancient life. NASA's Curiosity rover has been exploring Mars since 2012 and has sent back countless images and data. Its twin, the Perseverance rover, landed on Mars in 2021 and is searching for signs of ancient microbial life. It will also test technologies that will help future astronauts live on Mars. Though Mars may not be the most hospitable planet, it is certainly the most explored planet in the solar system besides Earth. Robotic explorers have landed on its surface and rovers have driven across its rusty landscape. We've explored its poles and its canyons and learned about its past by analyzing meteorites that fell to Earth. Future explorers will build on this legacy and search for answers to some of humanity's most profound questions. Is there life on Mars? Could humans live on Mars? And are we alone in the universe? This is the first episode in our series about our solar system. Next time we'll explore Venus. Make sure you subscribe for more updates, and thank you for watching.